The first rays of the morning sun slipped gently through the curtains of the Adimula family mansion. For the first time in many years, the enormous house did not feel lonely. Instead of silence, tiny cries echoed through the halls. One belonged to a little boy. The other belonged to his twin sister. Those sounds made every servant smile. Grandpa Williams was already awake long before sunrise. He slowly walked into the nursery with the careful steps of an old man whose heart had finally received everything it had prayed for. The twins slept peacefully inside their cribs. One tiny hand rested outside the blanket. Grandpa reached out with trembling fingers and gently held it. "My prince," he whispered. Then he turned toward the little girl. "And my princess." His eyes became wet. "I asked God for one great-grandchild. He gave me two." Behind him, Auntie Funk laughed softly. "I warned everyone that you would never leave this room." Grandpa smiled proudly. "I own this room now." "You own the entire house." "No." He looked at the babies again. "They own me." Elsewhere in the mansion, Shola slowly opened her eyes. Motherhood was more exhausting than she had imagined. She had barely slept. Every few hours, one baby cried. Just as she settled one, the other woke up. Yet strangely, she had never been happier. She looked beside her. The bed was empty. "Femi?" She sat up carefully. The bedroom door opened. Femi entered carrying a breakfast tray. "Good morning." She smiled. "You made breakfast?" "I supervised breakfast." She laughed. "That sounds more believable." He placed the tray beside her. "You need to eat." "I'm not hungry." "You have to." "I'll eat later." He folded his arms. "No." She blinked. "No." "You tell everyone to take care of themselves. You forget yourself." She smiled. "So now you're using my own words against me?" "They work." She laughed again. "You've changed." "I know." "You smile more." "I know." "You even argue." "I learned from my wife." She shook her head. "I created a monster." "You created a husband." Before either could say another word, a loud cry came from the nursery. Then another. Femi sighed dramatically. "Our bosses are awake." Minutes later, the nursery became lively once again. Shola carefully carried the baby girl while Femi awkwardly tried to calm the boy. The little boy continued crying. "I'm doing something wrong." "No." "He likes you more." "He doesn't." "He definitely does." Shola giggled. "You've negotiated Billionaire contracts. You can handle one tiny baby." "This tiny baby refuses negotiations." Grandpa entered. "What is happening?" "Your grandson is losing." Grandpa gently took the baby. Within seconds, the crying stopped. Femi stared. "Impossible." Grandpa smiled proudly. Experience. 3 weeks passed. Life settled into a new rhythm. The newspapers had not stopped talking about the CEO of Sterling Group becoming a devoted family man. Employees whispered. Shareholders noticed. Even competitors were surprised. People who once feared Femi now saw another side of him. He still demanded excellence. He still disliked excuses. But something had softened. Whenever meetings ran too long, he checked his phone. Pictures of his children filled the screen. Everyone noticed. Nobody dared mention it. At Sterling Group, Toby sat quietly inside his office. He had accepted reality. Shola was happily married. She loved someone else. He had promised himself he would move on. But moving on was harder than making promises. His friend Daniel entered. "You've been staring at the same document for 20 minutes." "I know." "Still thinking about her?" Toby sighed. "No." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "You're lying." "I know. You need to stop hurting yourself." "I'm trying." Daniel placed a hand on his shoulder. "Some people are meant to teach us lessons, not become our future." Toby nodded silently. Perhaps it was finally time to let go. Inside the CEO's office, Femi reviewed quarterly reports. His smile slowly disappeared. The numbers looked wrong. He called Chuka. "Come in." Chuka entered immediately. "Yes, sir? These overseas transactions. Who approved them?" Chuka looked confused. "I'll check." They're missing nearly 50 million naira. Chuka's face changed. That shouldn't be possible. It isn't. Femi closed the file. Someone inside this company is stealing. Meanwhile, at home, Grace's biological mother visited again. This time, she came alone. She carried a small photo album. I thought. She hesitated. You might like to see your childhood. Shola accepted it carefully. Inside were photographs of a smiling little girl. One picture showed Grace feeding pigeons. Another showed her birthday. Another showed her sleeping beside her older brother. Tears formed in Shola's eyes. I don't remember any of this. You don't have to force yourself. I know. Her mother smiled sadly. I've already found you. That's enough. Shola reached across the table. For the first time, she held her mother's hand willingly. Thank you for waiting for me. Her mother cried quietly. I would have waited forever. That evening, Femi returned home earlier than usual. Grandpa immediately noticed. You left work before sunset? Yes. The world must be ending. Femi laughed. My family is more important. Grandpa nodded proudly. Good. I prayed for this. Dinner became noisy. The twins cried. Servants hurried around. Grandpa kept making jokes. Auntie Funked kept correcting him. Even the babies seemed happier. For the first time, the mansion truly felt like a home. Later that night, everyone slept peacefully. Almost everyone. Outside the estate gates, a black SUV stopped. Its headlights switched off. A man remained inside. He watched the mansion silently. After several minutes, he opened an old brown envelope. Inside were faded photographs. One photograph showed the accident from many years ago. Another showed a frightened little girl. Another showed a woman standing beside the wreckage. The man whispered quietly. So, they finally found each other, but they still don't know the whole truth. He folded the photographs carefully. Then he looked toward the brightly lit nursery window. Enjoy your happiness while it lasts. Because the past is finally coming back. The engine started. The SUV disappeared into the darkness. Far behind it, hidden beneath one of the estate's flower pots, was another envelope. Inside it was a handwritten letter. Across the front, only 6 words were written. For Grace, read this alone. The morning after the mysterious letter appeared beneath the flower pot, the Adimula mansion was unusually peaceful. The twins slept soundly after keeping everyone awake for most of the night. Shola gently rocked her daughter, while humming the same lullaby her late mother used to sing. For a moment, the world felt perfect. Femi stood quietly at the nursery door, watching his wife. You've been standing there for 5 minutes, Shola said without looking up. I know. Then come inside. He walked over and carefully lifted their son into his arms. I still can't believe they're ours. Shola smiled. They're very real. The baby yawned, making both parents laugh. Downstairs, Grandpa William sat in the garden with his morning tea. A gardener noticed an envelope lying beneath one of the flower pots. Sir, someone left this. Grandpa frowned. There was no stamp? No, sir. Only 6 words were written across the front. For Grace. Read this alone. Grandpa's expression immediately changed. Who brought this? No one saw, sir. He looked toward the house. Take this to no one. The gardener nodded. Grandpa slipped the envelope into his jacket pocket. Meanwhile, at Sterling Group headquarters, Femi called an emergency meeting. I want a complete audit. The finance director looked surprised. Sir, every account, every payment, every overseas transfer. The board members exchanged nervous glances. Someone is stealing from this company. Silence filled the room. Elsewhere in the city, the black SUV parked outside an abandoned warehouse. The mysterious man stepped out. Inside, another elderly man waited. Did you deliver the letter? Yes. They'll find it, the older man sighed. It has been 26 years. They deserve the truth. The truth will destroy powerful people. It already destroyed one family. Back at the mansion, Grandpa finally entered his study. He stared at the envelope for several minutes before opening it. Inside was a faded photograph. A little girl, covered in blood, standing beside a crashed vehicle. Behind her, a woman was holding her hand. Grandpa's breathing became heavy. There was also a short handwritten note. If Grace learns who truly caused the accident, she will never forgive the people she now calls family. Before Grandpa could finish reading, someone knocked on the door. Grandpa. It was Femi. Grandpa quickly folded the letter. Come in. You don't look well. I'm fine. You never hide papers from me. Grandpa forced a smile. Some secrets must wait. Femi noticed the worry in his grandfather's eyes. For the first time in years, Grandpa looked afraid. Grandpa Williams remained seated after Femi left the study. His hands trembled as he unfolded the letter once more. The handwriting looked old, almost as though it had been written many years ago. At the bottom was no signature. Only one sentence stood out. The wrong people were blamed. Grandpa closed his eyes. What happened that day? He whispered. Meanwhile, Shola was in the nursery changing the twins' clothes. The little boy stretched his tiny fingers toward her face. She smiled warmly. You've started recognizing me already. The baby girl let out a soft laugh. You too. Auntie Funk entered carrying warm milk. Madam, you should rest. I will. You always say that. Shola laughed. Everyone keeps telling me the same thing. Because everyone is right. At Sterling Group, the audit had begun. Files covered the conference table. The head of internal audit looked uneasy. Sir. Femi looked up. What is it? We found something strange. What? The missing money wasn't transferred outside the company. It was divided into dozens of tiny payments, so small that nobody noticed. Femi leaned forward. Who approved them? We're still tracing them. Find out, no matter who it is. Elsewhere, the mysterious man watched the company building from across the street. He spoke quietly into his phone. The investigation has started. A voice answered. Good. Keep watching. They're getting closer. The call ended. That evening, Shola finally found a quiet moment. She walked into the garden while the baby slept. The cool breeze reminded her of evenings she had spent with her late mother. I wish you were here, she whispered. Just then, she noticed something white beneath a bench. A folded piece of paper. She picked it up. There were only 3 words. Trust no one. Her heartbeat quickened. She looked around. The garden was empty. Someone had been there only moments before. Inside the house, Grandpa noticed the paper in her hand. What is that? I found it outside. His face turned pale. Give it to me. Shola hesitated. Grandpa. Please. She handed it over. Grandpa compared it with the letter hidden inside his pocket. The handwriting was identical. Someone wasn't just sending messages anymore. Someone was inside the estate. Late that night, security cameras were reviewed. The guards searched every recording. One guard called out. Sir. Femi walked over. What did you find? The screen showed a hooded figure entering through the rear garden. The person's face was hidden, but one detail was clear. They walked with a noticeable limp. Femi paused the footage. Zoom in. The image became blurry. The face remained impossible to identify. Only the limp stood out. Find everyone connected to this family who walks like that. Yes, sir. In another part of the city, the hooded figure entered a small apartment. On the wall hung dozens of photographs. Grace as a child. Grace as Shola. Her wedding. The twins. Every stage of her life had been secretly documented. The figure removed the hood. The face remained hidden from the reader. I promised your mother, the stranger whispered. And I will keep that promise. The stranger looked toward another sealed envelope. Its label read, The Final Truth. The lights went out. Only the envelope remained visible in the darkness. The next morning, the Adimula mansion felt quieter than usual. No one mentioned the anonymous notes during breakfast, but everyone was thinking about them. Femi watched Shola carefully. She tried to smile while feeding the twins, yet he could see the worry in her eyes. You didn't sleep, he said softly. I kept thinking. About the notes. She nodded. I don't understand why someone would frighten us. Femi reached across the table and gently held her hand. I won't let anything happen to you or the children." Grandpa Williams looked at both of them in silence. He wanted to tell them about the first letter, but something held him back. If the anonymous writer was telling the truth, everything they believed about Grace's disappearance could change. At Sterling Group, the internal audit team worked through the night. Chuka hurried into Femi's office carrying a file. "Sir, we've identified the accounts." Femi looked up. "Whose are they?" "They all lead to shell companies. And every shell company was created by the same law firm." Femi frowned. "Who hired them?" Chuka swallowed. "The paperwork was authorized years ago, before you became CEO." Femi slowly closed the file. "So this has been happening for years." "It appears so." "Then we're not dealing with ordinary theft." Meanwhile, Shola visited her late mother's grave. She placed fresh, white lilies on the headstone. "Mom, so much has happened. I found my birth family. I became a wife. I became a mother." She smiled through tears. "But you'll always be my first mother." A gentle breeze moved through the cemetery. It felt almost like an answer. As she turned to leave, an elderly woman standing nearby called her name. "Grace." Shola stopped. "I'm sorry." The woman walked closer. "I knew you when you were little." Shola stared in surprise. "You knew me?" The woman nodded slowly. "I was a nurse. I was there after the accident." Shola's heart began to race. "What accident?" Before the woman could answer, a black car suddenly stopped beside the road. Two men stepped out. The elderly nurse's face filled with fear. "I've already said too much." She hurried away before Shola could stop her. The black car drove away with her. Shola stood frozen. Who were they? Back at the mansion, Femi listened carefully as Shola described everything. "A nurse? Yes. She knew my name. And she mentioned the accident." Grandpa nearly dropped his teacup. "The accident." His voice became quiet. "So someone else remembers." Femi immediately noticed. "Grandpa, what aren't you telling us?" Grandpa looked at both of them, then at the sleeping twins. Finally, he sighed. "I received a letter." Silence filled the room. "What letter?" Grandpa slowly removed the envelope from his desk. "I didn't want to worry anyone, but I think the past has found us." Femi opened the envelope and read every word. His expression darkened. "This says, the wrong people were blamed." He looked at Shola. "I think someone wants us to reopen what happened 26 years ago." Outside the mansion gates, the same black SUV appeared once again. This time, it did not drive away. It simply waited. Someone inside was watching the house. Watching and waiting. The black SUV remained parked across the road from the Adimula estate. Its windows were tinted so dark that no one could see inside. A security guard noticed it and reported it immediately. "Sir," one of the guards said over the intercom, "the same vehicle has been outside for almost an hour." Femi walked to the security monitor. "Zoom in." The image became clearer, but the driver's face was still hidden beneath a cap. "Send 2 men," Femi ordered calmly. "Don't confront them. Just see if they leave." "Yes, sir." By the time the guards reached the gate, the SUV quietly pulled away. "They're gone, sir." Femi narrowed his eyes. "They wanted us to know they were watching." Inside the nursery, Shola held both twins close. Ever since hearing about the mysterious letters, she felt a strange uneasiness. Her son wrapped his tiny fingers around hers. The simple touch calmed her heart. "No matter what happens," she whispered, "I'll protect both of you." Femi entered quietly. "They're asleep?" "They've finally surrendered." He smiled. "I wish adults were that easy." She looked at him. "You think this has something to do with my childhood?" "I don't know. But someone is trying very hard to make us look backward." Meanwhile, Grandpa William sat alone in the library. He unfolded the faded photograph once again. His eyes stopped on one detail he had missed before. In the background of the accident scene, a man stood near the damaged vehicle. His face was blurry, but around his neck hung a silver pendant shaped like a lion. Grandpa frowned. "I've seen that before." He searched through an old family album. After several minutes, He found another photograph taken almost 30 years earlier at a charity event. A businessman stood beside Grace's father. The same lion-shaped pendant rested on his chest. Grandpa whispered the name in disbelief. It can't be. At Sterling Group, the audit team uncovered another discovery. Chuka rushed into Femi's office. Sir. What now? We found deleted files. Can they be recovered? The IT department already has them. Minutes later, the head of cybersecurity projected the recovered documents onto a screen. Every payment trail led to one mysterious company. Lion Crest Holdings. Femi froze. Lion. The word reminded him of Grandpa's reaction earlier. Print everything. I want every document. That evening, the family gathered in the living room. Grandpa placed the old accident photograph beside the audit documents. Femi stared at both. The same symbol. The lion. Shola looked between them. What does it mean? Grandpa answered quietly. I think your accident and the theft at Sterling Group may be connected. Silence filled the room. Connected? Shola asked. How? I don't know yet. But coincidences don't last this long. Far away, inside an old warehouse, the mysterious stranger opened the final sealed envelope. Inside was a birth certificate, a hospital record, and one final photograph. The stranger smiled sadly. The time has come. Grace deserves the whole truth. The stranger picked up a phone. It's time, they said. Tomorrow, we tell them everything. The call ended. Outside, thunder rolled across the night sky. A storm was coming. And with it, the truth everyone had been waiting for. Rain poured heavily over the city through the night. By morning, the gardens of the Adimula estate glistened with fresh drops of water. Inside the mansion, however, no one felt at peace. The mysterious envelopes, the old photograph, the lion pendant, the strange company called Lion Crest Holdings. Everything seemed to be pointing toward a secret that had been buried for decades. Femi was the first to wake. He quietly walked into the nursery. The twins were sleeping peacefully. His son smiled in his sleep. His daughter stretched her tiny hands into the air. Femi gently kissed each of them on the forehead. You two have no idea how much you've changed my life. Shola watched from the doorway. You've become soft. He smiled. Only around the three of you. She walked over and rested her head on his shoulder. Whatever happens, we face it together. Always. Later that morning, Grandpa Williams called everyone into the study. The old photograph lay on the desk beside several folders. I've spent the entire night thinking, he said. I believe it's time we reopen the investigation into Grace's disappearance. Shola took a deep breath. I want the truth, no matter how painful it is. Her biological mother nodded. We all do. Grandpa looked at Femi. Contact Victor. And find the best investigator available. Femi nodded. It'll be done today. At Sterling Group headquarters, the audit team continued tracing the suspicious payments. Chuka entered with another report. Sir, we found something. What is it? The first transfer to Lion Crest Holdings happened 26 years ago. Femi looked up immediately. 26. The same year Grace disappeared. The room fell silent. Elsewhere, the mysterious stranger sat inside a small chapel. The envelope marked Final Truth rested on the bench beside them. An elderly priest approached. Are you finally ready? The stranger nodded. I've carried this secret for too long. The little girl deserves to know. The priest sighed. The truth often heals. But first it hurts. The stranger closed their eyes. I know. That evening, as the family gathered for dinner, the estate's intercom buzzed. One of the guards spoke. Sir, there's an elderly woman at the gate. She says her name is Mary. She insists she must speak to Madame Grace immediately. Shola frowned. Mary? Grandpa stood up suddenly. The nurse. Femi looked toward the security monitor. On the screen stood the same elderly woman Shola had seen at the cemetery. She looked frightened, and she kept glancing behind her as if someone had followed her. Bring her inside, Femi ordered. Minutes later, Mary entered the living room. Her clothes were wet from the rain. Her hands trembled. "I'm sorry it took me so many years." Shola stepped closer. "You know who I am?" Mary nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I held you in my arms the day your family lost you." The room became completely silent. Mary took a deep breath. "I was there." When everything changed, the living room fell silent. Only the sound of rain tapping against the windows could be heard. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Mary. She clasped her hands tightly, as if trying to gather the courage to speak. "I've carried this burden for 26 years, she said quietly. "Every day, I prayed I would find the strength to tell the truth." Shola stepped closer. "Please, tell me what happened." Mary nodded slowly. "I was a young nurse at the emergency unit when the accident victims arrived." She paused, taking a shaky breath. There was chaos everywhere. Ambulances kept arriving. Families were crying. Doctors were running from one patient to another. "I remember seeing a little girl sitting alone in a corner." She looked directly at Shola. "That little girl was you." Tears welled in Shola's eyes. "I don't remember any of it." "I know." Mary's voice softened. "You kept asking for your mother. But after the accident, you couldn't remember your name." Femi gently wrapped an arm around Shola's shoulders. Mary continued. "We informed the police immediately. They circulated your description. We believed your family would find you within hours." "What happened?" Grandpa asked. Mary lowered her head. "Before anyone came, a man arrived at the hospital. Everyone became still. He claimed he had been sent by your relatives. He knew your name. He even described the clothes you were wearing before the accident." Shola frowned. "So they believed him?" Mary closed her eyes. "At first, yes. But something didn't feel right. He kept insisting on taking you away immediately. I asked him to wait until the police confirmed his identity. And then, he disappeared." The room was silent. "He left before the police returned." Femi frowned. "So he never took Grace?" Mary shook her head. "No. The next morning, you were gone." "What?" "I searched every ward, every corridor. You had vanished." Grandpa slowly stood. "Are you saying someone kidnapped her?" Mary nodded. "I believe so. But I never found proof. I blamed myself. For years." Just then, the estate lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then, the entire mansion went dark. The twins began crying upstairs. Auntie Funk hurried toward the nursery. "Stay with the babies," Femi called. Emergency lights switched on. One of the security guards rushed inside. "Sir, the cameras have gone offline." "What happened?" "We don't know." Before anyone could react, a loud crash echoed from the study. Femi sprinted down the hallway. The study window had been shattered. Rain blew through the broken glass. The desk drawers were open. Someone had searched the room. Grandpa's envelope, the photograph, the mysterious letter, they were all gone. Femi looked outside. A shadow disappeared into the darkness beyond the garden wall. "Security," he shouted. "Seal every exit." Guards scattered across the estate. But by the time they searched the grounds, the intruder had vanished. Back inside, Mary stared at the broken window. "They've started." Shola looked at her. "Who?" "The people who don't want the truth to come out." Femi's jaw tightened. "Then they just made a mistake." "What do you mean?" Chuka asked. "They came because they're afraid. And if they're afraid, it means we're finally getting close to the truth." Outside the estate, hidden behind the trees, the mysterious intruder climbed into the waiting black SUV. They placed the stolen envelope on the passenger seat. Then they smiled. "The game has begun. The game has begun." The SUV disappeared into the rainy night, leaving behind only tire tracks and a family more determined than ever to uncover the truth. The rain finally stopped just before dawn. The Adimula estate remained under heavy security after the break-in. Guards patrolled every entrance, and no one was allowed in or out without permission. Inside the house, the atmosphere was tense. Femi had barely slept. He stood in the study, staring at the shattered window. "They knew exactly what they were looking for," he said. Chuka nodded. They ignored everything valuable. No money, no jewelry, no electronics. They came only for the envelope. Femi clenched his fists, which means the letter was important. Upstairs, Shola sat beside the twins. Her son slept peacefully in her arms while her daughter rested in the crib. Auntie Funk entered quietly. "My dear, you should eat." "I'm not hungry. You've said that 3 times today." Shola sighed. "I'm just worried." Auntie Funk smiled gently. "Your children need a strong mother." Shola looked at the twins. "I know." She finally accepted the tray. Meanwhile, Grandpa Williams asked Mary to join him in the library. "There is something you've never told anyone," he said. Mary lowered her eyes. "There is." "What is it?" "The man who claimed to know Grace. I saw him again." Grandpa's eyes widened. "When?" "About 10 years after the accident." "Where?" "Outside Sterling Group headquarters." Grandpa froze. "Sterling Group?" "Yes." He walked out of a meeting. I never forgot his face. At the same time, the cybersecurity team at Sterling Group made another discovery. "Sir," one of the analysts called. Femi hurried over. "What happened?" "The company database was accessed during last night's blackout. They hacked us." "Not exactly. They copied archived files." "Which files?" The analyst swallowed. "Records from 26 years ago." Femi looked stunned. The same year Grace disappeared. Later that afternoon, a black sedan stopped outside the estate. 2 detectives stepped out. They introduced themselves to Femi. "We've reviewed the security footage. Did you identify the intruder?" "Not yet. But we found something unusual." They handed him a photograph taken from a nearby traffic camera. The black SUV had been captured, leaving the neighborhood. Its license plate was partially visible. Only 4 characters could be read. LC 27. Femi stared at it. LC. Chuka looked at him. Lion crest. Femi nodded slowly. It can't be a coincidence anymore. That evening, Shola decided to take a short walk in the garden. The fresh air helped calm her mind. As she reached the old oak tree, she noticed something tied to one of its branches. A small silver pendant. It was shaped like a lion. Her heart skipped a beat. She carefully removed it. On the back was an engraving. "Truth always returns." Before she could call anyone, she heard footsteps. Someone was running through the trees. "Who's there?" No answer. The figure disappeared beyond the fence. By the time security arrived, the stranger was gone. Again, Shola looked down at the pendant in her hand. Whatever secret had been buried for 26 years, it was no longer staying buried. Femi reached the garden only seconds after Shola called out. "What happened?" Shola held up the silver pendant. "I found this hanging from the tree." Femi took it carefully. The lion emblem matched the one Grandpa had seen in the old accident photograph. He turned it over. The engraving was unmistakable. "Truth always returns." Grandpa arrived moments later. The moment he saw the pendant, his expression changed. "I've seen this before." "Where?" Femi asked. Grandpa took a deep breath. "It belonged to a private organization years ago." "What organization?" "They called themselves the Lion Society. They presented themselves as businessmen and philanthropists. But rumors followed them." "What kind of rumors?" Grandpa hesitated. "People whispered that they controlled politicians, companies, and even police investigations." The room fell silent. Later that afternoon, Femi gathered his security team. "From today, no one enters this estate without verification. Double the guards. And install new cameras covering every blind spot." One of the guards nodded. "Yes, sir." Another stepped forward. "Sir, there's something else." "What is it?" "We found footprints beneath the oak tree." "Were they clear?" "They lead toward the eastern wall. But after that, they disappear." At Sterling Group, Chuka rushed into Femi's office carrying another report. "Sir, we've traced Lion Crest Holdings." Femi looked up immediately. "Who owns it?" "The ownership records were erased years ago." But what?" "The company still pays annual maintenance fees." "To whom?" "A law firm." "Name?" Chuka placed the file on the desk. Adebayo and Partners. Femi frowned. I've heard that name before. They handled several legal matters for Sterling Group before your father passed away. Meanwhile, Mary sat alone in the guest room. She looked out of the window nervously. There was a gentle knock. Come in.
It was Shola.
You haven't eaten. Mary smiled weakly. I lost my appetite years ago. Shola sat beside her. Why did you stay silent for so long? Mary's eyes filled with tears. Because I was afraid. Afraid of whom? The people behind the accident. Shola stared at her. They warned me. They said if I ever spoke, more people would disappear. That night, the mansion finally grew quiet. The twins slept peacefully. Femi stood on the balcony, looking across the dark grounds. Shola joined him. You should rest. I will. You've been saying that all day. He smiled faintly. I learned that from you. She laughed softly. For a brief moment, the fear disappeared. They stood together in silence. Then Femi spoke. No matter who is behind this, I won't let them take our peace. Shola slipped her hand into his. I know. Across town, inside an abandoned office building, the mysterious stranger placed the stolen envelope on a dusty table. Another person stepped out of the shadows. So, they've found the pendant. Yes. And Mary has started talking. The second figure remained silent. It won't matter for long. They opened an old metal box. Inside were dozens of newspaper clippings about Grace's disappearance, the Adimula family, and Sterling Group. On top of them all lay a single document stamped in red. Confidential. The stranger smiled coldly. Tomorrow, they'll learn who really ordered the accident. The lights went out. Only the red stamp remained visible in the darkness. The following morning, the atmosphere inside the Adimula mansion was heavy with anticipation. No one spoke much during breakfast. Even Grandpa Williams, who normally found a reason to joke, remained unusually quiet. Femi noticed. You've been thinking all night. Grandpa nodded. I have. I keep asking myself the same question. What if everything we believed about that accident was a lie? The words settled over the table like a cloud. Shola instinctively placed a hand over the twins' stroller. I don't know if I'm ready for that answer. Femi reached for her hand. You won't face it alone. At Sterling Group, Chuka arrived carrying a sealed envelope. Sir. It came by courier. There was no sender. Femi carefully opened it. Inside was a single flash drive. Attached was a typed note. Look inside the archive marked G18. Nothing else. No fingerprints. Femi asked. The police checked. Nothing. Femi inserted the flash drive into an isolated computer. A password screen appeared. After several failed attempts, Chuka noticed a clue written in tiny letters beneath the message. Grace 1999. The screen unlocked. A hidden folder appeared. G18. Inside were scanned documents dating back more than 25 years. Insurance records. Hospital reports. Company correspondence. And one file marked. Strictly confidential. Back at the mansion, Mary stood near the nursery, smiling as the twins slept. They're beautiful. They're peaceful. Shola smiled. I hope they grow up without secrets. Mary looked away. I hope so too. Before either woman could continue, Grandpa entered. Mary, she turned. I need you to look at something. He handed her an enlarged copy of the old accident photograph. Mary studied it carefully. Suddenly, she pointed toward the background. That's him. Grandpa leaned forward. You're certain? I'll never forget that face. He was the man who claimed he had come for Grace. Meanwhile, Femi opened the confidential file. His eyes moved rapidly across the pages. His expression changed with every paragraph. Chuka noticed immediately. Sir? Femi remained silent. Finally he spoke. This file says the accident wasn't an accident. Chuka's face went pale. What? It says the brakes on the vehicle had been tampered with. Silence filled the office. Who wrote the report? Femi looked at the signature. The original investigating officer. But the report was never submitted. It was hidden. At that exact moment, a loud alarm echoed through the building. Security personnel began running through the corridors. Chuka rushed to the window. Sir, smoke was rising from the company archive. The records room. Without hesitation, Femi sprinted toward the staircase. By the time he reached the archive floor, employees were already evacuating. Firefighters hurried inside. Femi looked toward the burning room. The section on fire contained records from 26 years ago. Someone wasn't just hiding the truth anymore. Someone was trying to erase it forever. The shrill sound of the fire alarm echoed through every floor of Sterling Group. Employees hurried toward the emergency exits while smoke spread through the archive wing. Femi pushed through the crowd. Move! A firefighter stepped in front of him. Sir, you can't go in. There are important records in there. The structure isn't safe. Femi looked through the thick glass door. Flames had already reached several shelves. Years of documents were disappearing before his eyes. He clenched his jaw. Save what you can. We're trying, sir. Outside the building, Chuka organized the evacuation. Has everyone been accounted for? Yes, sir. The fire started in the old records section. Any injuries? None so far. Femi joined them a few moments later. His shirt was covered with soot. A firefighter approached carrying a metal storage box. Sir, we found this in a fireproof cabinet. Femi opened it. Inside were several damaged files. Most had been burned beyond recognition. One folder had survived almost intact. Across the cover were the words, Project Lion. At the Adimula mansion, Shola was feeding the twins when her phone rang. It was Femi. Shola. Are you okay? I'm fine. There was a fire. Her heart skipped. A fire? At Sterling. Are you hurt? No. But someone destroyed part of the archive. Shola looked down at the sleeping babies. They're trying to erase the past. I know. But they were too late. We recovered one file. Later that afternoon, Grandpa, Mary, Femi, and Shola gathered in the study. The surviving folder lay on the table. Femi carefully opened it. Most pages were damaged by smoke. Only fragments remained readable. One sentence caught everyone's attention. Operation approved after board authorization. Another page listed several signatures. Unfortunately, only one signature remained legible. The surname was Akini. Shola stared at the page. My family name. Her biological mother looked equally shocked. My husband would never. Grandpa raised a hand. Don't jump to conclusions. This document is incomplete. We don't know whose signature it is. Just then, Chuka hurried into the room. Sir. What now? The forensic team examined the fire. They confirmed it. Confirmed what? The fire wasn't accidental. It was started deliberately. Meanwhile, across the city, inside an abandoned chapel, the mysterious stranger watched a small television report about the Sterling Group fire. The news presenter said, authorities suspect arson, but investigations are ongoing. The stranger switched off the television. There's still one step behind. Another person emerged from the shadows. You should leave the country. The stranger shook their head. Not until Grace learns everything. And if they silence you? The stranger smiled sadly. Then the documents will speak for me. They reached into a leather bag and removed another sealed folder. This one was thicker than all the others. On its cover was written, The Complete Truth. That evening, as darkness settled over the city, an unmarked courier motorcycle stopped outside the Adimula estate. The rider handed a sealed package to the security guard. There are no delivery details, the guard said. The rider simply replied, I was told this must reach Madame Grace tonight. Before the guard could ask another question, the rider sped away. Inside the package was a single key. Attached to it was a handwritten note. Locker 214. Central Railway Station. Open it before someone else does. Shola looked up at Femi. Neither of them spoke, but they both knew the same thing. Whatever was hidden inside Locker 214 could change their lives forever. The note lay on the table between Femi and Shola. Neither of them touched the small brass key for several moments. Grandpa Williams finally broke the silence. This could be a trap. Femi nodded. It could. Shola looked at the key. It could also be the answer we've been searching for. Mary quietly agreed. Whoever sent it has been risking everything to reach you. Femi turned to Chuka. Arrange security. No uniforms. No company vehicles. I don't want anyone knowing where we're going. Yes, sir. Within 30 minutes, everything was ready. Grandpa insisted on staying at the mansion with the twins. I'll look after my great-grandchildren. They'll be safer here. Femi smiled. Don't spoil them too much. Grandpa laughed. Too late. An hour later, a black SUV quietly entered the underground parking area of Central Railway Station. The station was crowded. Travelers hurried in every direction. Announcements echoed through the building. Femi looked around carefully. Stay close. Shola nodded. Mary walked beside them. Locker 214 was located near the older section of the station. Rows of metal lockers stretched across the hallway. Femi found the number. 214. He looked at Shola. Ready. She took a deep breath. No. But open it. Femi inserted the key. The lock clicked. Slowly, the door swung open. Inside sat a small leather briefcase covered in dust. Nothing else. Back at the mansion, Grandpa was feeding the twins when the electricity flickered. Auntie Funk frowned. Not again. The backup generator started immediately. One of the guards hurried inside. Sir, we've lost the outside cameras for 20 seconds. Grandpa's smile disappeared. Check the grounds. Now. Meanwhile, at the station, Femi carefully opened the briefcase. Inside were dozens of documents. Old photographs. A hospital bracelet. A child's tiny red shoe. Shola picked it up. Tears filled her eyes. I don't know why, but this feels familiar. Mary gasped. I remember that shoe. You were wearing it after the accident. At the bottom of the case lay a cassette recorder. Beside it was a handwritten note. Play this in private. Femi looked around. I don't like this. Let's leave. As they turned away, a loud crash echoed through the station. One of the overhead lights shattered. People screamed. Crowds scattered in every direction. Two masked men rushed toward them. They're after the briefcase. Chuka shouted. Femi pulled Shola behind him. Take Mary and go. What about you? I'll catch up. One attacker lunged forward. Femi blocked the blow and pushed him back. The second man grabbed the briefcase. Before he could run, Chuka tackled him to the ground. The briefcase slid across the floor. Shola quickly picked it up. Run, Femi shouted. Security officers rushed toward the disturbance. The attackers exchanged nervous glances. One of them threw a smoke canister onto the floor. Thick gray smoke filled the hallway. By the time the smoke cleared, the masked men had vanished. Outside the station, everyone climbed into the SUV. Shola held the briefcase tightly against her chest. Femi started the engine. No more stopping. We're going home. Unknown to them, across the street, a man wearing dark glasses lowered his camera. He had photographed everything. He picked up his phone. They have the briefcase. A calm voice answered from the other end. Good. Phase 2 begins tonight. The call ended. The man smiled as the Adimula SUV disappeared into traffic. The hunt for the truth had become far more dangerous. The drive back to the Adimula mansion was completely silent. Shola held the leather briefcase tightly in her lap, as though letting go of it would mean losing the last piece of her past. Femi glanced at her. We're almost home. She nodded, but her eyes never left the briefcase. When they arrived at the mansion, Grandpa Williams was waiting at the front entrance. The twins were asleep in Annie Funk's arms. The children are fine, Grandpa said before anyone could ask. Then he noticed the briefcase. You found something. Femi nodded. But we were attacked. Grandpa's smile disappeared. They're getting desperate. The family gathered inside the study. Femi locked the door. Chuka checked every window before nodding. We're alone. Femi placed the briefcase on the desk. Let's see what someone was willing to kill for. He slowly removed each item. The hospital bracelet. the tiny red shoe, several photographs, a newspaper clipping about the accident, and finally, the cassette recorder. Mary stared at it. I remember these. They used cassette recorders to record witness statements. Femi looked at the recorder. It still has batteries? Chuka inserted fresh ones. The machine clicked. A few seconds of static filled the room. Then, a man's frightened voice spoke. My name is Samuel. I'm giving this statement because I don't think I'll survive. Everyone froze. The recording continued. The accident involving the Akini family was planned. Shola's breathing became shallow. The voice continued. I was the driver following behind. I saw another vehicle force them off the road. Grandpa closed his eyes. My God. The recording crackled again. Samuel continued. The order didn't come from the Akini family. It came from someone who wanted control of Sterling Group. Femi looked up sharply. Sterling. The room fell silent again. The next words were almost drowned out by static. His name is... The tape suddenly stopped. The recorder clicked. Silence. Chuka tried rewinding it. The same result. The tape had been damaged. The name was gone. Shola covered her face. We were so close. Mary gently held her hand. At least we know one thing. It wasn't your family. Grandpa nodded slowly. And whoever planned the accident wanted more than revenge. They wanted power. Just then, Femi's phone rang. It was the head of security. Sir, what is it? We caught someone trying to climb the eastern wall. Did you identify them? No, sir. But they were carrying this. A guard entered moments later with a sealed envelope. Femi opened it carefully. Inside was a single photograph. It showed a much younger man standing beside Femi's late father. On the back, someone had written in black ink, "The man beside your father is still alive." Below the message was another line. Ask him why your parents really died. Femi stared at the photograph. His hands slowly tightened around it. My parents. Shola looked at him with concern. What is it? He raised his eyes. I always believed my parents died in a simple car accident. He looked back at the photograph. But what if that wasn't an accident either? The room fell silent. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky once again. The mystery had just grown even bigger.